that's okay, Jill. And I'll let you know when we're live. Hello. Welcome to the first meeting of the Crown Street Library Trustees. The meeting's now live and I will take the first item on the agenda. It's the appointment of chair. Do I have any nominations?
I'd like to nominate Heather, please.
Okay, is that seconded?
Yeah, seconded.
Yeah, is there any other nominations? No. If I can just have a show of hands if you're all in favour, all the trustees. That's great. Then that's Councillor Mrs Scott, who's chair of the meeting. I will now pass you over to Councillor Mrs Scott for the rest of the meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Lynn, and thank you very much for voting me in as the chair of this meeting. I think going forward, if anybody else wants to take it on, but I think seeing as this is the first meeting, it's probably the easiest way, obviously, to deal with this. Can I ask the trustees to introduce themselves for the member of the public? If I can start by saying I'm Councillor Heather Scott and I'm leader of the council. Yvonne, would you like to introduce yourself?
Hi, I'm Yvonne Richardson. I just wanted to say a few words because I don't feel that that we've significantly marked the contribution of the many people who've got us to this point. So I'll just read what I've said. And a bit about me. I've loved living here for 25 years, partly because I think it's got many similarities with the Victorian suburb of Manchester, where I grew up. I played a leading role in the campaign to keep the library in Crown Street, starting with the Facebook page and then with the Friends of the Library. I'd like to take this opportunity to pay tribute to the many, many people in Darlington who put so much of their time, effort and passion to demonstrate that the library service and building are inextricably linked. And that link is the history of the town, of the Quakers and their own personal memories. Okay, that's all.
Thank you, Yvonne. Matthew, would you like to introduce yourself?
Thank you, Councillor. So yeah, Matthew Roach, been a keen supporter of the library ever since I kind of moved to Darlington about 20 years ago, and very proud to be on this board. I have been involved in many aspects of Darlington life. I founded Darlington Culture and kind of was involved in registering the library as a community asset of value with the council to ensure its longevity in the community, and was supportive of the efforts to keep the library where it is. And I would echo some of Yvonne's sentiments on that grounds. I work for a livery company in the City of London, but I'm based in Darlington, so I can be a contact for them in the north. And I'm also involved as the director, as one of the directors of Darlington Credit Union, and also as the chair of Bike Stop Darlington. I'm very, very honoured to be part of this trustee group, protecting and supporting the legacy of Edward Pease. Thank you.
Thank you. And Elizabeth.
Hi, yes. I've spent probably about the last 17, 18 years living in Darlington. I moved from just a little bit further north in the northeast. And I'm really passionate about the library and about the building and the services that it provides, and about the heritage that of Darlington in general, but in the library in particular. I've spent my career in higher education management, so I've spent my career supporting education and lifelong learning and trying to encourage people from the northeast to make use of the exceptional educational opportunities that the region provides. Currently, I'm working at Durham University, where I've worked for well over 20 years in that capacity. So this seems like a natural fit for me in terms of my sort of past experience, and I'm, as with my other trustees, extremely honoured to have this opportunity to be involved.
Thank you very much, and you know, I'm very pleased that the three of you are trustees of the library. I think that we can all work together for the future of the benefit of the people of Darlington. I think because we are live streaming, I think it would be fair that if everybody else introduced themselves. Susie, you're a very important part of the library, so if you could just introduce yourselves and give us a little bit of your background.
Thanks, Heather. Yep, Susie Hill, and fairly new in post library manager. A lover of libraries, but a particular lover of Darlington libraries. I've worked for the service for 11, 12 years, I think. Previous job as library events manager, and very happy to be taking on the role of library manager now.
Thank you, Susie. And the officers, Ian.
Oh, yes, thanks, Chair. I'm Ian Thompson. I'm one of the assistant directors for Darlington Borough Council, and the library service sits within my area of responsibility alongside other aspects of culture as well. Thank you.
Okay, Mike.
Thank you, Heather. I'm Mike Crawshaw. Good morning, everyone. I'm head of Culture and Heritage within Darlington Borough Council. I work very closely with Susie in terms of the operations and development of the library service, as well as the other things that we do with the Hippodrome and Museum service and the town centre, and I'll report directly into Ian.
Thanks, Mike. Luke.
Thank you, Chair. So I'm Luke Swinhoe. I'm the Assistant Director, Law and Governance. I'm the Council's Chief Legal Officer. One of the things I've had recent involvement in is facilitating the establishment of this Board of Trustees, and I'm obviously happy to be involved in this meeting.
Thank you, Luke. And Lynn, who has put all this together, and obviously Jill, I think, who is doing the IT connection. Lynn, would you just like to introduce yourself?
Yeah, I'm Lynn Wood. I'm elections manager and I work in democratic services, so I'm providing the minutes and sort of the arrangements for the meeting, and my colleague Jill Ford is in the office and she's doing the live streaming for us.
So thank you very much indeed, everybody. And item 3 is obviously marking the 135th anniversary of the opening of the Crown Street Library. I think, Ian, do you want to speak to this? As I said before, obviously it is an important occasion for us. It's a shame because of coronavirus that we obviously can't do the celebration in the way that we normally would have wanted to do it, but obviously we will try and make sure that as much publicity as possible does go out to the general public. I'm not quite sure how many people are connecting into this streaming, but I think it's important that after this meeting we get as much out to the public as we possibly can via the comms team. So Ian, would you just like to say a few words?
Yeah, thanks, Heather. Yeah, this is the 135th anniversary of Crown Street Library. And it is a pleasure to sort of have responsibility for the service and for the building, and there's some really exciting opportunities going forward that Mike will talk about in terms of how we're looking and how the council are going to invest in Crown Street Library to make sure that obviously it's preserved and restored and celebrated going forward for the next 135 years. And I think as Yvonne mentioned earlier, it is also an important part of the town's history, and also will contribute towards obviously the 200-year celebration of the Stockton-Darlington Railway as well. So we play an important part in that celebration, and at that time it will be the 140th anniversary of Crown Street Library. So thank you, Susie. I don't know whether there's anything you want to add, or Mike.
So no, just really, really happy to be celebrating 135 years of our service.
Thank you. We have had a document circulated on the update of the history and so forth of the Crown Street Library. As this is our annual meeting, I think it's a very full report, and hopefully the general public will be able to access this on our website, because I think the history is there. And I'm not quite sure, and maybe Yvonne will be able to add to that, I'm not quite sure how many people in Darlington actually know the history of the library. And I think this is something that we do need to get across to the general public. I think this document is very informative, and I think somehow or another we've got to get that out into the public as well. Do you? I think I can see some nodding heads. Do you want to say anything, Yvonne?
Yes, I've prepared a few words. So, an auspicious day. We've now separated the care for the building and put it in with residents having some say on the future of the building, which is wonderful news, and I thank the council for doing that. So the service will develop separately as a taxpayer funded service, but the building, the trustees will have a big say on being responsible for. So it's wonderful to be able to celebrate the 135th anniversary. When the library opened 135 years ago today, there were great celebrations with hundreds of people, and it took all day. And all the local and regional papers were full of verbatim reports of all the speeches from the great and the good, going into great detail and mentioning every single name and every single donor, and everything. It took pages and pages. And then it took all day. People were given a day off, and there were dinners going on throughout the day. So it was a great event for the town. The opening was carried out by Lady Lymington, who was the daughter of Edward Pease, who died when she was a child. Edward Pease had campaigned for some years before his death, which was about 1880, for the town to have a library, but he needed to get agreement from the town's ratepayers for a penny to be added to the rates to ensure that the library would continue to be maintained after it was built, and this failed at his first attempt, but thankfully at his second attempt they agreed to do that. He left money in his will for the library to be built, but unfortunately he died before he could see his dream realised. But his brothers ensured that his wishes were fulfilled. The building was designed by G.G. Hoskins, a famous Darlington architect who designed so many of the town's buildings, including Barclays Bank, and he was also involved with the Market Clock Tower. He was a pupil of Alfred Waterhouse, who was a nationally famous Victorian architect who built the, I think it was the Natural History Museum in London, but also famously Manchester Town Hall, which I'm very familiar with. And he also designed our clock tower, which I always think it looks like Big Ben. So Hoskins continued his work. The library building is beautiful, and it's much admired by visitors to the town that I've heard speak. I suppose Susie has a lot. And it's a very unusual building. It's red brick, and it seems only the best materials were used. It's constructed using pressed red bricks from Gromont near Whitby, and also red stone from Dufton and Newbiggin quarries, which are in Cumbria near Carlisle. Above the original entrance on East Street is a stone tympanum, which is a kind of conglomeration of symbols. And that includes the borough coat of arms, which, as far as I know, includes locomotion. And the town motto and the arms of the Pease family. The keystone of this arch has the head of the goddess of learning, Minerva. and above her, her wise bird with its right claw on an open volume. The entrance hall itself has some lovely stained glass, but the feature, which is the case throughout the whole library, is the ceilings, which are glass. There's so much light in the building and it's so airy. And I think it's a great feature which makes it such a pleasant place to be. But in the entrance hall in particular, it's an octagonal dome with painted glass. The library has been a focus for social, education and leisure pursuits in Darlington for over 130 years. And it's provided a focus for the town's historic and artistic activity. And increasingly, because of the museum, local studies has become very important, and it's a much treasured feature of the library and very well used. As a result, the library now accommodates the art gallery. The library's played a substantial, significant part in the cultural and social development of Darlington. The building is also an important part of the streetscape of Darlington, and it's historically important architecturally at regional level. This is important, that it's a regionally important building, and as a surviving library building with so many buildings closing. As an example of a Victorian building, it's also important to the country's cultural legacy. The anniversary of the opening is a great opportunity to remember the opportunity made to the prosperity of the town by the Pease family, not just through their industrial endeavours, but by their many, many contributions to the betterment of life for the townspeople, not just with the library, but with parks, temperance, trees, many other things. That makes Darlington a Quaker town and a railway town. And this is all focused in our library building, a lasting legacy. And now going forward, the building is being updated, the service will be updated, and hopefully it will continue to carry on these functions for as long as we can see in the future. That's all, thank you.
Thank you very much, Yvonne. Thank you for obviously giving us all the background to that. And that's one of the very good reasons that you're involved as a trustee, because of your knowledge, not only of library, but the town in general. And I thank you very much for that. And I think it would be good if we could have a copy of that, because I'm quite sure we could use that. You know, within the library and really for the history. Mike, I noticed that you put your hand up before. Do you want to add something?
No,
Yvonne. Oh, sorry, you were maybe just waving about.
Yeah, Yvonne, listen, Yvonne's captured it perfectly there. Perfectly.
Yeah. Does anybody else want to add anything? But I think that, you know, I think the information that Yvonne has given there, I think that would be interesting to the rest of the people in Darlington. Thank you very much for Yvonne, and I know you didn't get an awful lot of notice to do that, so I really am extremely grateful. If nobody has any comments or questions on that, if we can go on to item 4. Mike, this is the proposals for the restoration.
Yes, so thank you, Heather. What I was going to do is I was going to run through some visuals to support the discussion here, support what we're outlining. Essentially, it's probably just worthwhile recapping where we got to immediately pre-COVID, unfortunately, because we went through a pre-planning exercise. It was one of the last things really we were able to do. At the library, at our central library, where we went through an engagement process asking for feedback on some early concepts for what the refurbishment, the restoration process could look like at Crown Street. Now, we did that in the very early part of 2020. And then unfortunately, obviously, as we all know, we went into March and things changed fairly dramatically. So that pre-planning process, what that did essentially is we were able to get a lot of feedback both online and in person through some sessions in the library from residents and visitors about what was important to them going forward in the way that the library was improved, restored, and really fit for purpose for the next 10 years and beyond. I mean, there was a number of key themes came forward. What was loud and clear was that the historic fabric and the heritage of the building were really important to residents, and that any improvements and any investment in the library were very sympathetic to the heritage of the building. It was effectively a heritage-led scheme. The second thing that was very prominent was accessibility and the need to continue to improve accessibility, and that was a clear message from lots of people and families who put their views forward. Yvonne's already touched on this, but the provision of local history and gallery were again key themes. They were reaffirmed time and time again, the importance of those spaces as community spaces, spaces where we could celebrate the diversity of the town and celebrate the artistic kind of content and skills that lie within the town, within the gallery space, plus as well local history was reinforced again over and over. The value that people have on family history, the ability to research, the ability to study, and a quiet space to do that. Further themes after that, children and young people came across loud and clear. The importance of engaging with a new generation of library users, library stakeholders, and the importance of being able to do that digitally. That came across loud and clear, and the need to modernise and be able to go with some new concepts to engage children and young people. Also, the need to cater for families from overseas, because our population has evolved, and celebrating that diversity in the town and catering for families from a whole wave of different backgrounds, that came across very strongly, and a place to study as well for young people where that wasn't always possible at home. I think probably COVID has reinforced that message stronger than ever. So those were a few of the themes that came back. As a result of that, we've done some work during the COVID process to be able to try and develop the scheme. And I'm going to show you some concept drawings now, and they are concept drawings. They're a bridge between what we consulted on during the pre-planning process and obviously final drawings that we will bring to life during 2021 on site. So these are concept drawings. All feedback will be welcome, but it'll give you a flavour of some of the things that came forward. So if you just bear with me a second, I will share these. Can somebody shout up if and when you can see them?
Yeah, they're fine, Mike.
Oh, great. In terms of key themes, I'll just run through a few things before we start running down the slides. Key message that we've received loud and clear is that everybody to a person values the shelving, the original shelving. So what we've done is that's just reflected in these drawings as staying in situ, being made good where there is some repair work required, but that's a key historic feature that came across loud and clear during the pre-planning process. So with the designs that we are developing now, that shelving is obviously retained there. Just in terms of some of the detail, there is a bird's eye overview here, just on this little schematic, which just effectively runs through the division of the spaces, which is essentially left as is now. So you can see where my cursor is hovering over on the left hand side as you look at the screen there, or over the gallery space. And I suppose I'll run through the detail of the feedback we've received and how we've translated that on some of the colour images below, but this just gives you a division of the spaces, which obviously, as we know, are gallery here, the entrance at this end of the building, that original lobby area, which I'm going to talk about, what was originally known as the ladies' reading room there. Okay, and then obviously we've got local studies, ICT, reference, junior, and lending. Okay, one of the key issues around accessibility has been, and we consulted on this during pre-planning, has been the need to improve accessibility. Because at present we've got a 1990s, early 90s intervention here at Preesgate, which provides our lift access. So we've explored a number of options here during the lockdown period to try and improve access. One of those was a fully accessible entrance on Crown Street, just where I'm hovering the cursor there, as well as a much improved lift access at the Preesgate entrance here. Now, we worked closely and have worked with the conservation officer, who obviously interprets and works closely with Historic England, because we're acutely aware of the fabric of the building and working in line with Historic England best practice there. And the feedback that we've got, again, loud and clear, is that conservation wise, certainly Historic England wouldn't like to see anything that was going to materially change this Crown Street entrance, because obviously if we're going to make it accessible, that would require building, construction interventions here, and they weren't keen on that at all. So we've further developed a scheme to much improve this Preesgate access, so that we've got a much better solution for people who've got wheelchair requirements, people who may have disabilities more broadly and require an accessible solution, as well as obviously access for prams, pushchairs, families here. So the proposal at the moment is to really improve this Preesgate solution here, but to leave that as per the historic, leave the historic fabric intact at Crown Street there. So that's been a key kind of piece of development work during that lockdown period around working with conservation there. This is just an overall building floor, really, that looks at the connectivity between the areas. I won't dwell on that too much. And then what we have in is, and I would stress again, these are concept drawings, right? So what they do is they highlight some of the things that have been fed in, the improved use of and the modernisation of IT, and a more modular approach to that has been something that visitors have told us is important. This area on the left here just kind of tries to illustrate the importance of some areas that are segregated, where people can study privately or in small groups. This is in the existing IT area of the building. And then on the wall here, and Yvonne touched upon this, one of the things we feel we are committed, well, we're certainly committed to, when we feel strongly about this, is the need to for a proper interpretation strategy in the building that tells the story of the legacy of Darlington Library, Edward Pease, how that came to pass, and the story of how it's developed. So we feel an interpretation strategy throughout the building. Doing that would be via interpretation panels. It may be through the use of some technology, images, but that reinforces the story of libraries in Darlington. There are some overview images here. This is just a different angle, I suppose, of some of the furniture that you could use. These are just ideas. And again, 3D views with some potential, with suggestions around some of the finishes, the fabrics, how some of this could be interpreted. This is just an idea of the creation, an inset creation of a teenage zone. Again, during the feedback that we have received, improvement for young people at the teenage end of the market, if you like, and engagement for teenagers was something that was flagged up. So creation of a small zone, a discrete zone where teenagers can feel that they've got their own space within the library is something that we're suggesting would be important. Again, this is just more use of what the more ideas on what the interpretation and what the spaces could look like. I think this is a key point here, that public IT use, public PCs are spaced throughout the library service. We've currently got obviously a consolidated area, and I think one of the pieces of feedback that we've received is that IT use in a number of areas through the library service, through the library building rather, is something that residents would like to see. So we've given some suggested images there. These are concept ideas around how the junior section, the junior area, could be can be more engagement led. So there's a little stage there with obviously this is a forest theme. That's just one example of what a theme could be. So what it's trying to do is just animate these spaces, give a little performance, reading, poetry area, spaces where children can express themselves, get involved in stories, reading, writing. It may be used as a little drama area on occasions, but essentially very much engagement led. So there is just some illustrations to kind of reinforce that. Scrolling down over, they're just different illustrations there. Local studies. Again, you'll see the interpretation on the perimeter walls there, telling Darlington's story and its library story. An improvement in IT provision. The layout is very similar, but the furniture, some of the furniture which has just been acquired in relatively recent years, certainly hasn't got a historic context, has been updated there, so there's a better comfort level and more modular spaces for people to study and learn. Again, just with some replaced floor coverings and redecoration. That's just local studies there. And then in terms of what I referred to as historically as the ladies' reading room, that one of the pieces of feedback we received is that some quieter spaces like this, some dementia-friendly spaces would be very welcome within Darlington Library. And again, this is an interpretation of what that could be. So that could be quiet reading space, high back chairs there, and space essentially where people could relax, read, and just enjoy their time in the library there. And there's a bird's eye view. And that just takes the roof off there. So these are just some further graphics. There we go, just down to the bottom there. So I'll take that down so everyone can see. So those are some concepts. Before I move on to some of the practicalities of the roof work and where we are proposing to and intending to go forward with that, starting very early in 2021. I'm conscious I've talked a lot there and thrown a lot of images, illustrations out there. I'd love to take some questions. Has anybody got any thoughts, any early thoughts on some of those things?
If you could, yes, Elizabeth.
Hi, yes. First of all, thank you very much. It was very, very interesting. Couple of thoughts from me. One is around access, and I've worked with listed buildings and access before, and it is a tricky issue. I think the thing that always concerns me is if it feels like another, if it feels like something separate and something different for people who require it. So I think one of the concerns that I would have is trying to make it look like there are multiple entrance points to the library, of which this is just one, and therefore it doesn't feel like something special or something different for people who perhaps have disabilities or families, so that it feels more welcoming. So that was the first one. The second one was about the study spaces. And of course, quite a few people have their own IT equipment, which they carry around with them religiously. So just making sure that some of those free spaces where there perhaps wasn't IT offered were going to have points for electricity that people could just sort of set up their own equipment and use. Absolutely, Elizabeth. Just on that.
Should we take all the questions, Mike? Because I've got both Yvonne and Matthew with their hands up.
Yeah, fine. If we take all the questions, then I'll respond in turn. But because, thank you, Elizabeth.
Yvonne.
Okay, mine were about, I'm glad to see the ladies' reading room used, and the features in there are fantastic, and especially for dementia and stuff like that, or a history room, I think that's excellent. I'm really, really pleased to see that. My concern is really about the interpretation. Because it's not a museum, it is a library, and so you want to take it, and just Susie, you'll see this, the service moving forward. So it's combining the history, but as well as a library moving forward, meeting modern digital needs, which is very different from when it was first opened. And I'm also concerned about the amount of treasure we've got locked up in the archives in terms of photographs, donated paintings, that kind of thing, and also in the borough collection. I first became aware of this when I saw there was a North Lodge Park painting from 1880, and so Stephen allowed me to view it, and it's just so much history in that area of town, just in that painting. And so then I looked at all the other paintings, and they're of different, and I'm sure your wife might have something to say on this, they're of different styles from different periods, the 70s, more formal at the beginning of the 1900s, and of different views of the town at different times. It's an absolute treasure trove to see a rolling history, a rolling exhibition regularly changed of those views of the town, also incorporating all the photos and wonderful stuff they've got in the archives, far too, and there's no use it being locked up, is it? And also the borough collection, it's worth a lot of money. So, and I know, there's a care aspect in that, which is unfortunate, but that's not the point, because it's the content that people will be bothered about. So I do hope that that very, very difficult link between incorporating our history, interpretation of our history, but then going forward, into how libraries will be used. So that was one thing, and I'm sorry to take a lot of time. But the other thing is and I know there was a lot of debate about the entrance, and so I'm so pleased to see that solution, because I do think that'll work. I think that'll be a lot better, and I hope other people will approve of that. But also, I don't know whether people are aware that the desk will go, which I think it's useful to keep saying that to people, because it will, you know, everyone's familiar with the desk, but because of digital, we don't really need the desk. So it's going to be a big thing to get over to people, but I think it's very sensible, and it releases so much more room. And then also the toilets, quite a few people are still bothered about this toilet issue. What's happening to the original toilets by the entrance? And are they going to go to the back of where the desk is now? And that's all. Thank you.
Okay.
Matthew?
Thank you, Councillor. First, I'd like to congratulate Mike and the team for getting to this stage despite COVID. I know that the announcement to invest in the library was initially made in 2018 at the end, and has been carried forward under Heather Scott's leadership. So it's great to see you've got to this stage, and I think there's some really exciting ideas there. I'd echo Elizabeth's point on access and people not feeling marginalised and put to one side, and I'd also echo Yvonne's points around the borough collection. My other point would be, or my question is around, there seems to be quite a lot of furniture and other sort of features within those concept drawings. I know there are any concept sort of drawings at the moment, but one of the great things about the library at the moment is there's a great deal of flexibility to be able to put on plays that I've been to have other events, to have children's events like the Lego Club that my daughter's been to, and to have a whole range of events that like the knitters that can kind of use the space. So I'm hoping that we don't lose that flexibility to be able to use those spaces with these plans. Thank you.
Thank you, Matthew. And there's just one question coming to me via email. I think it had been talked about before, Mike, and that's some kind of cafe provision or provision for people to have drinks, if you can include that in your response. Yvonne, you've still got your hand up. Have you got another question, or is it just left up? Okay, thank you. Thanks, Mike.
Right, so forgive me for talking for quite a bit here. Right, I've kind of divided these up. I think there's about 7 questions, so I'll run through in turn. Please just jump in if you want, if you've got supplementary questions when I answer, because I'm conscious the whole idea here is to have some, you know, discussion and move designs on. So firstly, Elizabeth's points around, and Matt raised this, in fact, and Yvonne, around access. An absolutely fundamental issue for us, right? Fundamental. Feel very strongly about this. As Elizabeth pointed out, dealing with a historic building can be very challenging in terms of trying to improve access and meet modern accessible standards. We really do need to broaden our engagement with the library service, and physical access is fundamental. So we have already worked closely with DAD and Gordon Pybus around several iterations here, and will continue to do so, because the last thing that we can have going forward is physical access that is substandard, or it makes people feel that they either don't want to use the library service, or you know, it's structured in a way that is an obstacle. So we've got to get that right. Trying to balance that with the historic building requirement, yes, is a challenge, but we've got to get there. So there will be a further round of work with DAD as the you know, as an advisory body, so that we can get that solution around access for disabled people, and we can get that right for the future. So I completely agree with everything that you've said there.
Sorry, Mike, can I just make one comment on that entrance? On that entrance there, the poor librarians are tortured by pigeons.
Yeah,
Absolutely. And when the pushchairs go in and the wheels, they get
I know.
detritus, and then it's trailed all through the line. And
it's on my list.
The council's made a heroic attempt to get a cherry picker to put spikes on so they can't perch up there. So I don't know what the solution is. I'm sure you'll find one.
No, we're already onto it.
Yeah, good. Okay.
We're already onto it because you're dead right. It's horrible. So we're on to trying to deal with that. Obviously, dealing with it in the appropriate way. But we've already engaged ecology people around a number of issues, and we will deal with that. Second point there, study spaces. Elizabeth, you raised this quite right in terms of the modern way that people want to use devices portably. What we've asked for throughout the design is multiple plug-in and charging points, because in any library now, people want to use their own devices, not predominantly, but a heck of a lot. So that's crucial, and that is included in the design. Yvonne, you raised some points around interpretation. What I would stress is interpretation would certainly not be about making the library into a museum. It would be about telling the story and celebrating what's happened, but also critically catering for a digital world, as you quite rightly pointed out. I like to think we would do this. There's the track record for this type of approach. I like to think is at the Darlington Hippodrome that we finished that scheme in 2017, where obviously that is predominantly about theatre and the here and now and the experience, but we've also told the story of theatre in Darlington through an interpretation strategy throughout the building. So it's not about looking back over, it's about celebrating what's gone and interpreting that for a modern, a use here and now. So it's just about that celebration. In terms of the archive, again, this came across very clearly in the pre-planning process. Obviously, access to any large organisations or any town's archive physically is a challenge. We're addressing that in several ways. One is the digitisation process, and that will be part of the solution. I think the other thing that we envisage is that access to the basement archive will be possible, because obviously you can't have everything above the ground. There would never ever be the space. But in that basement archive, we've talked with Susie a lot about this and the potential for guided tours, regular weekly access around certain elements of the archive that may be volunteer supported in the way that Matt's Darlington for Culture volunteers have enabled a heck of a lot of work around the archive at the theatre, and bringing that online and making that accessible. So we feel that there's a solution, part in digitisation and online access, but also part physically with guided physical access, use of volunteers to enable that, so that people can access the rich archive that exists in the town. So that's the solution. That's not a finished plan. It's the ideas we've got around enabling that. But I think both of those things are entirely possible.
Would I be able to add to that, please, Mike? Just to
Absolutely.
say, thank you. Just to say that we, it was a very good point made, Yvonne, and it has been brought up when I've been having discussions with staff in the local studies area. We do want some of that collection being on show a little bit more. So currently, as you know, there is a body of work going on to digitalise a lot of that, and it is available on request currently. But also in terms of the artwork, they do like to display that, and that changes monthly at the moment. But I think there's a bit of work for us to do to advertise what we do a little bit more. And moving forward in the refurb, we're trying to identify space where we can kind of have a treasures from the basement display case so that it can be displayed but also changed over regularly. Okay, thank you.
Yvonne, do you need to come back on that?
Yeah. Sorry, yeah, I must have. Yeah, because this is also important for schools, isn't it? Because I've got involved with the local school, and sense of place is very important. And so the library is a huge resource for schools in that way. But also the borough collection, I don't know if you're going to come on to do with that. And I can see that, you know, that's the last thing you want to be thinking about when you've got all this to do. But I do make a strong plea for, please, can we make more of the borough collection? Just for people, so we're having all these new houses built. All these people are going to move here and they won't know anything about our town. And to see what it was like, to see why it's got a proud history, all the engineering we had here. You know, it's all so well illustrated in those pictures. It's not about the quality of the pictures, well, in my view anyway. You know, it's about what they're illustrating. Well, thanks so much, Mike. You've taken on board everything, and Susan, that's brilliant.
Yeah, I'll come to borough collection just on the end there, because there is some plans for that, not just in the library setting, but in other settings in the town. I'll come onto that in a minute there, Yvonne. Thank you. Toilets, always going to be a big issue in any building. Quite understandably, quite rightly. Again, we've had lots of feedback over lots of years around toilet provision. Obviously, right now it's very limited, and the feedback that we had is that the existing toilets are dated, and certainly the provision for library users needs to be improved. The existing plan for location of toilets within a refurbished central library would locate male, female, accessible toilets, and then also some proper separated family changing provision, which obviously we don't have at the minute. Would locate them in the area that currently sits, that is situated behind where the desk currently sits. In that, so it would be a relocation, Yvonne, from the current area where the toilets are based, and the reason for that would be to provide spaces that were compliant with what current standards would be, but also an extension of provision and the addition of a family changing area so that babies can be changed with a proper level of comfort and hygiene, and then separately there will be an area for people to feed their babies properly. So it would be about increasing the volume, the quality of provision, and extending the family changing provision. That's the concept that is accounted for right now. Matt's point around flexible space, I totally agree with Matt that the whole concept here about taking the library service forward is an engagement-led approach. Susie would kill us if we didn't enable all of the flexibility of space for events, children's events, schools. We've done a lot of work with Tracks Darlington, little music events. We do little children's gigs on an evening, all of those type of things. The concept is that will be all of that and much more in the future, and therefore the ability to move the furniture back, create little stage areas, have groups of children singing and dancing, have book recitals, author talks, gallery talks, all of those things and more. So the flexible space is crucial. I'm conscious on the concept drawings. Yes, there is a lot of furniture there. A lot of that is just to try and give the emphasis of what the look and feel will be like. But the flexibility and the ability to turn it around quickly is crucial. Cafe provision. Right, I'm conscious this is always a hot topic. Within the design process so far, we've looked at cafes, we've listened to what people have said. There's a very polarised view. Some people are adamant we should have a cafe, others think it would be sacrilege. We feel that on balance, some kind of portable solution is probably the best one, probably through higher quality vending in an appropriate area rather than a cafe space with servery and everything that goes with that. I think we feel that financially that would be probably a challenge revenue wise to make that work, but also the spaces that we've got and that we've outlined there are heavily used for library purposes. And what I mean by whether it's engagement or local studies or gallery, we don't feel that there's the space to hand over to a cafe provision per se, but we do accept if people are studying, they may want to get a coffee. If they're in with the children, they want to get a water or a snack. So we've tried to kind of use that as the balance. So we've still got to work out the details of where that could go, because obviously it requires, some services and plumbing and the rest of it. So that's still a work in progress. But the concept is more around higher quality, discrete vending and social space rather than a cafe space.
Thanks, Mike. Notice Yvonne has got a hand up. Have you got something? Because Mike's going to go and talk about the roof. I'm just conscious of time, that's all.
Yeah.
Yvonne, did you want to come back?
Sorry, just two very short things. About the cafe, yes, it will be very controversial, but I'm totally in agreement with that. And I think it will work really well. But the toilets, what's happening with the old toilets then?
Say that again, sorry, Yvonne, I missed that.
What's happening with the old toilets, the existing toilets?
So that will be part of, I suppose, opened up into that circulation lobby space as you enter the building there, Yvonne. But that wouldn't be left as toilets as is. It wouldn't.
So would they? What about parking for all the trams and things?
Yeah, I've been working with Susie around what the solution is for pram park for. Obviously for families and hopefully greater numbers of families in the future. So we were committed to a solution on that. I think we've got some ideas about how that will be facilitated within the junior area.
Right. Okay, so all that panelling and all the gubbins around the existing toilets will be gone. So it will be a much more open space where people can move around freely. Is that the vision now?
I think the vision is to create, is to enable as much circulation space as possible there. Obviously, those original features around the oak panelling and things, what we want to try and do is retain that wherever possible, because again, people have said to us the original features are important, and we don't accept it. We agree. So what we're trying to do is improve the toilet provision in a different area and extend it, and make good, if you like, that entrance area so that it's something that is pleasant and provides a feeling of space and retention of the original features wherever possible.
Excellent. And so just to add about the cafe, what I was going to say is that my main reason about the cafe is you could have the whole of that lovely building as a cafe if you did what people wanted, because it's such a popular thing now to sit and have a coffee and have a read. And the library seems to be the one thing we've got left now. The museum's gone, the art centre's gone. So it's like all those needs that were in that building are now landing on the library, and everybody wants a bit of it, as well as moving forward with children and young people and digital and everything. So in terms of a cafe, I think people who want a cafe need to take that into consideration, and there will be a provision, but in terms of the amount of available space, it's just not possible.
Thanks, Yvonne. Mike, you were going to talk a bit about the roof.
I will, yes. Thank you, Heather. I'm concentrated on designs then. In terms of the functional job of replacing the roof, obviously that is a challenge. We have spent a lot of time during this year looking at what the design process would be and how that piece of work will be approached. That work is reaching a conclusion, and we expect to be on site in the first week of January with a roof replacement programme that we think a modular approach to working on the roof will enable us to remain open pretty much throughout that work, but obviously there'll be some close down of some spaces while specific pieces of the roof work go on, but the library building will remain open. The roof work is expected to carry on for 12 months, so we expect that to go into early 22, and expect that to be finished within the first quarter of 22. Now that would be the roof, and that would be the scheme as a whole. So that's where our programme is sitting currently. Obviously, addressing the roof is fundamental to make the building watertight for the next generation, but keeping the building open at the same time, there's obviously a detailed job of work to be done there.
Thanks, Mike. I think we appreciate how complex it will be, but as long as we keep people informed of the progress of it and give sufficient notice if any closures and so forth, just so that everybody knows. Right, okay. Thank you. The next item on the agenda is Susie and the performance of the library service. And you've got two, and then how you dealt with coronavirus. I think maybe if you take the two together, but can I just start by saying the service that you provided to the public, particularly during the coronavirus episodes, really have been very well appreciated. I think generally the public have welcomed that, and thanks to all your staff that were involved in providing that service. So over to you, Susie.
Thanks. Yeah, the staff have done a really excellent job. I've got some visuals to run alongside this, so I've got the items running through. I'm going to try and just share my screen, so if someone can let me know when it makes it over to you, please. Is that working? Has anything come up your end?
Not yet.
Yeah. Try again.
Yes, that's fine now, Susie.
Lovely. And that's still showing?
Yep.
Yeah, thank you. Okay, it's my pleasure to give a brief update on the library service and what the immediate future looks like for Darlington Library Service within our historic building on Crown Street. I'd like to start by giving thanks to those supporting the refurbishment of our building and those helping to spread the word about our services. I am absolutely delighted that we are moving forward with the refurbishment and the commitment from senior management and the wider team to maintain the beautiful features we have and to restore original features back to their former glory. It gives me real confidence that our Victorian library will be treasured for many more years to come. So I'm here with a little service update. Looking at last year's statistics, we can see that during 2019-20, we had over 177,000 visitors to Darlington Library. This could be for borrowing and returning of stock, inquiries and events and activities. We do anticipate a substantial drop in visitors this year due to COVID-19. It's looking like we've seen around a quarter to a third of our usual visitor numbers since reopening in July. Last year, we loaned over 250,000 books across our library, a 6% fall on the previous year, and this takes into account children's and adult physical books only. It doesn't take into account our audio books or anything from our online catalogue. Our digital library loans have increased by 97%. These include ebooks, e-audio and digital magazines. We've still got a piece of work to do to advertise our digital offer, but it's really, really positive to see the usage increasing. Moving on to item 6, I'm going to talk about the library's response to COVID-19. The outbreak of coronavirus has tested us all. It had an immediate effect on the library as we, like others, had to close our doors. But this in turn pushed us to think differently and implement ideas fast as the situations were ever changing. The moment we closed our doors, we implemented online membership and we saw around 200 people join in just under 6 weeks. Our digital library is always open, and as you can see there by our stats, they took an upwards turn in response to people staying at home more. We did a year's comparison from September 19 to September 20, and digital book borrowing went up by 80%, e-audio by 88%, and magazines by 122%, thus taking our total percentage increase to 208%. Our home deliveries have been absolutely wonderful to work on. When COVID hit, our initial thoughts did go to the potentially most vulnerable group of our customers. The over 70s were asked to self-isolate for 12 weeks. These people represent a huge group of our users, many of whom describe borrowing books as a lifeline. Within a week, we had implemented the interim home delivery service. We offered this to those who were over 60 and self-isolating. They would just be able to ring us and request the delivery of books, and we would safely deliver these to their doorstep, and we repeat that process monthly. I'd like to say here, Councillor Scott, we had a lot of support from councillors who shared this information in their local areas. It can be a real challenge for us to get this service message out to that demographic, so the support there was really very much appreciated. We've been delivering to around 250 households in Darlington, and we'll continue to do so as it's proved a really valuable addition to our offer. We produced a book that you can see on screen there, containing photographs and memories from the 1940s, and we deliver these to care homes in Darlington with the hope that it would provide caregivers and residents with an opportunity to discuss and reminisce together. Many care homes weren't allowing visitors in through the virus, so this seemed a nice way of reaching those people, keeping their minds active and providing a little bit of joy. Our libraries have always had a huge following of children and families, and during the closures we offered online activities to help keep that link with our parents and children, and we wanted to encourage reading, learning and bonding at home. Our weekly programming included stories, crafts, Lego and book sharing activities, and more than 11,000 people accessed the first story time online. Through Book Trust, we purchased some quality reading and learning packs, and with the support of Darlington Virtual School, these were delivered to the home of 120 looked after children. Distance learning could obviously cause disruption for any child, but for a child in care away from their family home, they were certainly more at risk of disengaging with education. So by these packs being delivered to their home, addressed to them, it was just a really nice, special way of reaching them. And we opened our doors of Darlington Library on the 13th of July for COVID secure quick pick book borrowing. This allowed members of the public to visit our libraries, return items and browse the shelves for something new to borrow. We continue to offer our home deliveries to the over 60s and we'll continue to do that. It's been really well received. And we've now introduced some computer workstations to enable customers to check and print documents. Cockerton Library is back open and the Centre for Local Studies has stayed open for email inquiries, and when appropriate will open for appointments as well. We did manage to source some books and learning resources which we targeted at lower income families. I was able to team up with King's Centre, who utilised their network of food banks, and we distributed those to children aged 0 to 11 years. We also offered children aged 0 to 16 an incentivised challenge over the summer to keep them reading and to narrow the gap produced through the lockdown, which was sure to spread over those long summer holidays. We received over 200 entries, so not our usual high number, but with the drop in visitor numbers overall, it was to be expected. Am I okay to go on to item 7?
Yes, certainly. Yes, and then we'll take questions.
Lovely, thank
yeah.
you. Today marks the 135th birthday of Darlington Library. We've produced a wonderful video of photographs and video footage of the building, and we are sharing our online collection and have a display in the library to view. We've also got a competition running this week. Anyone who borrows from our libraries is being placed into a draw to win a book voucher prize. You can see that video on screen now. If there is time at the end, I can come back and show you the whole video in full. I think from your comments at the start of I think you'd enjoy this one. So I'll hold that back till the end. We've managed to set up a digital book group where members are encouraged to read the same ebook and join in with the discussion on our Facebook group. Anyone can join in and discuss books in general, particular books they're enjoying, or ask us for recommendations. We have offered primary schools time slots to visit the junior library within their bubble, and a book box delivery containing specially selected books according to the school's requirements. So some are topic based, aiming to support the curriculum and further the children's learning in those specific subjects. Others are simply to encourage reading for pleasure. We've also developed a trial challenge for primary schools. We're asking pupils to collectively read 100 well-chosen books. A selection is delivered to the school for loan, and a selection will be available to borrow from our libraries. The intention is for us to inspire children to read solely for the joy of enjoying a good story. Get those patterns in now, and they're going to be much likely to be readers for life when they're older. We are being much more proactive in advertising our digital offer to ensure that customers have access to books and reading materials throughout our service changes. This includes online books and magazines, but it also includes free access to sites such as ancestry.com and our daily newspapers. We continue to offer free book reservations. We're allowing that kind of collect and select option, and no fines are being imposed. Moving forward, we continue to follow government guidelines and advice from the DCMS to offer library services in a COVID secure environment. We're working with the team on the refurbishment of the library and are excited about the future. And we're definitely looking forward to better times where we can bring people together again, as is hopefully nicely seen by this clip from our wonderful videographer, Scott Akos. That's all from me, Heather, so I'll just exit that and bring me back out of it.
Thank you. I think that's been a very inspiring presentation, Susie. I'm particularly interested in the offer to primary schools. What kind of response have you had from that? Because I think that's something that we need to publicise. I think it's extremely important to get young children reading at the earliest opportunity. So I'm very interested in that.
As I'm sure you'll know, I'm incredibly passionate about getting children reading as early as possible. We've always offered school visits to classes in Darlington. In my old job, I used to visit all the schools yearly. And now we've reopened after COVID, we needed to look at a safe option for schools to be able to visit. So we're managing to offer them it outside of our current opening hours. So we've changed our current opening hours to allow for our COVID secure policies before and after the working day. So we're offering schools the opportunity to come in between 9 and 10 when it's closed to the public. We have had some responses and the schools are working on coming in. It's obviously, we've done our bit with making it COVID secure, but they've got to ultimately organise their bubble and transport if they need it, and their safe ways of coming down. And in terms of the book boxes, they're already going out. We supported them straight away when it was just the key workers, children's going in. I think I delivered to about 13, it's going off memory, schools in the lockdown, and we've picked that up now that we've reopened to the public. So some are asking for those specific curriculum-based boxes, and some it might be guided by what the children have asked for.
Right. Anybody, any comments or questions from anybody else? I can't see anybody's. Oh, Matthew.
Thank you, Councillor. And just to, no questions really, just to say, huge congratulations to Susie and the rest of the library team for the work, especially during the pandemic, but also coming out of it as well. And it's good, it's great to see as well the online events that you've been doing, and my daughter went to a really great event to do with drawing at the weekend, which is really good to see as well. So huge congratulations, and I'm sure you'll be developing. It's clear developing excellent new plans to diversify your offer over the next few years. So good work.
Oh, thank you. Our staff they're really committed to that customer experience, and we're hoping to continue that. Thank you.
Yvonne?
Just to say, I'm absolutely stunned about the increases in membership and all these stats. I mean, let's get that out. If you can email me the numbers, I'll put it on the Facebook page. But you know, there's a huge job to do there, migrating people to your site. You know, so they can get this information, because it's like the broken window theory, if you like, in the opposite way, because people like success. So the more they see it building like that and all the things that are going on, the more they're going to want to come. So I'm not sure how you do it, but if I can help at all, you know, just ask. Well, thank you so much. You're doing a great job. Thank you.
I found, and I will stress it again, we have had a lot of support, and the support we've had has been people sharing our information with other people. We've got so many different demographics to reach, and social media is a great way, but sometimes it's literally people talking over the garden fence to their neighbour, and that's how we reached a lot of those home delivery people. It's getting that message out. So just people sharing that we're a nice, welcoming place to be, and we've got something for everyone. That's as much as I'd ask for.
Thank you. And I think there's certainly something that we can do with members, working with you, Susie, to get this information out into the wards and so forth. So that's something that you know that we can promote.
Thank you.
Anybody else who wants to add anything? Item number 8 is the consultative group. Ian, you just wanted to comment on that.
Yeah, just very quickly. Obviously, we just prior to COVID, we'd gone through a process to recruit people to be involved in a consultative group, where obviously we could share what was going on in the library, and ultimately for them to be advocates for the library and work closely with the library staff and Susie as manager. There were 8 people that responded ultimately to that call for people to get involved. Unfortunately, obviously, that was at the end of February, and since then we've obviously been in the situation we currently in. So I think really it was just to say, and just so trustees are aware, obviously once we're in a position when we can obviously safely get back together, then Susie will be making contact with those individuals, and we'll try and get that meeting held and start that consultative group going forward. So really that's all I wanted to say with regard to that.
Thanks, Ian. Yes, I think, unfortunately, I think everybody recognises that COVID has had an effect on everything we're trying to do, but obviously it's just to let people know that we still want to move ahead with that. Item 9 is any other business. Does anybody have any other business? I can't see any hand. Oh, Susie.
Just as mentioned, if people would like to finish with watching that video that celebrates our 135th year, I'm quite happy to share it with you and give you a first glimpse. Okay, I mean, unfortunately, I possibly will have to duck out, but I mean, if people want to watch it, if they stay online, can I just thank everybody for attending today? I think it's been a very informative and inclusive meeting. Can I thank the 3 trustees for their support? I think this is very important going forward, particularly Susie and the library staff and everybody that's involved in this. And just to make the point that the library is extremely important as far as the people of Darlington are concerned, and I will continue to support you in every way I can as leader of the council. And I'm quite sure that a lot of members, as you said, Susie, members have been involved in going forward. We've got the library, we've saved the library, and we must continue to expand its reach into the community. So thank you very much indeed for everybody that has been in attendance. As I say, unfortunately, I do have to leave because I've got another meeting, but maybe at some stage I can see the video in the future, Susie. So thank you very much indeed, everybody. Thank you for your attendance.
Thank
Okay.
you.
Sorry, I will have to go.
Did I see some nodding if you would like to view it?
Yeah, share the video, please, Susie. Yeah.
It's 5 minutes, but I think, Yvonne, from the words you gave at the start, I think you'll enjoy it. Can you see my screen?
Not at the moment.
Oh God, it's happened again. Right.
Technology.
Has that worked?
Yeah.
Lovely. I am just going to pause that there because I've realised that you can't actually hear the narration over the top of that. So as well as there being lovely photographs, there's a narration of the story there. So what I'll do is, knowing that you can't hear it, I'm going to pop that out on social media. We'll get it on our website, but I'd encourage you all to have a look at it later on today.
Thanks, Susie.
Excellent. Thanks, Susie. It's brilliant.
Thank you. We'll stop the meeting there then. Jill, do you mind stopping the live feed?
Okay, thanks very much.